welcome back to Blake's Craft Beer Podcast. My name is Blake Longfellow. I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio for my first ever podcast in Cleveland, even though he's not the first time I ever talked to him. We did a virtual about probably close to a year
I think it was a year ago. Yeah.
And now I brought him back. He just gave me a tour of an awesome brewery called Great Lakes Brewing Company, the first ever craft brewery in the state of Ohio.
That's
and it was pretty impressive, the tour you took me on. So please introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Yeah. Mike Williams. My title is Brand Development Manager here at Great Lakes. So I'm on the marketing side, work closely with our sales team. But I'm also the company educator. I was a server and a tour guide here. So I got everything in my head, and I'm glad to be talking with Blake about our beers and about the brewery once again.
Yeah. You were an awesome tour guide, and it looked like you were a good pro at it.
Hey, it's all it's like riding a bike, you know? You get it down, and it never really leaves. So
how was that when you first started working here, doing the tours and just being a bartender? What was that?
It was great, yeah. So like something that's so cool about the craft beer industry and working for like a small independent company is if you're passionate about something and you're good at it, and there's a need, you can kind of find a spot for yourself. So when I got my start here back in 2012, I was busing. Started as busing, picked up serving, and then I always wanted to be an educator in some way. Thought I was going to teach high school, but it actually turned into educating people about beer instead.
More a fun subject.
It is,
matter.
yeah. And I'm sure to my high school, if anyone who's listening has been down in Cleveland, you know, but it's a high school right across the street from the brewery. That's actually the high school I went to. So sometimes I think about how I could be, up at like 6 a.m. and, getting ready to teach at 7:30 or 8 or whatever. And I like my current time frame a little bit better. So, yeah. But I started, tours were great, and that was an opportunity to teach people about the beer. And here we are, 10 years later, and it's a fun gig, needless to say.
So what made you decide to just come work here and to begin with? Was it the beer? Was it just trying to find a job? Or
it was definitely just trying to find a job, yeah. So, I went to college on the East Coast, and I'm from Cleveland. If listeners can't, I'm from Cleveland. I got my accent and everything. But, college education and stuff, I wasn't planning on working in a restaurant necessarily, but needed some sort of income at the time. But I was passionate about craft beer for sure. At that time, I turned 21 in 2008, so I was relatively new into craft beer. My second beer ever was a Dortmunder Gold Lager. But I was definitely full on nerd mode when I started working here, so it was a convenient. Before I started working here, I lived across the street, actually right next to the high school. So I was very well versed already with Great Lakes by the time I started working here. The bartenders were a little surprised that I was bar backing for them instead of ordering a beer from them at that time. So yeah.
So you grew up with the smells around here, huh?
I did, yeah. And Blake, I think you mentioned you could smell the beer cooking when you guys were getting out of the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the parking lot.
Yeah.
Since the main parking lot for the brewery happens to be right outside our major brew house. So it's pretty cool smelling that, especially when it's Christmas sale time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like when you were going in high school and stuff, so you could smell it then too?
Yeah, and it's actually hilarious. The track at St. Ignatius High School, the track is literally right across the street from the brewery. Mm-hmm. And I ran track for a couple years, and every once in a while there'd be this terrible smell coming from across the street. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, that was the smell of the brewing process, and now it's one of my favorite smells.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Wasn't great when you were running an 800 meter, but when you're just walking around talking about beer, it's a good smell. Right. So.
Talking about beer, you gave me quite a flight here, so
yeah.
Let's get into our first one.
Sure thing.
Which one do you want to start with?
Why don't we start? We can start with Cold Rush.
Okay.
I think it's a nice thematic thing for us. So we were talking about
the beer you said Great Lakes would never make, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for the listeners out there, if you know kind of the story of craft beer, we kind of started our industry to not make light beer, since that was in the 80s. That's what was available in the United States, and nothing wrong with the light beer, but when it's your only option, it can be a little boring. So the co-founders, Pat and Dan Conway, inspired by European beers, we talked last time on the podcast about our classics like Dortmunder, Elliot Ness, Edmund Fitzgerald, all classic styles that were very much not light beer. It's 2025 now, and everyone kind of figured out people like light beer, so why not make a light beer for the people of Cleveland? So Blake is sipping on. I'm sipping on a Midwest IPA. I'm a IPA boy all the way. So, but Blake and his first beer is Cold Rush Premium Light Lager. That beer is very new for us. Just came out later last year, but for all intents and purposes, it's brand new. And yeah, like Blake was saying, it's the beer that all of us who work in craft beer said we wouldn't make. But you know what? Like, there's nothing wrong with a light beer. And if people are going to drink a light beer, it might as well be one that's brewed in the city of Cleveland. So that's what Cold Rush is all about. It's 4%. It's 100 calories. So, if you're a Mich Ultra drinker or Miller Lite or whatever, that lower ABV is important, because with a light beer, you want to be able to enjoy it, of course, responsibly, but you want to be able to enjoy that in quantity, no problem. It's supposed to be easy. That's the whole point of a lighter beer. A lot of people who drink light beer are calorie conscious as well, so the 100 calories is a nice number. What do you think of the beer?
It's good. No, it's on a hot day like this, I could definitely see me crushing them a couple of
Beautiful.
these.
Yeah, head on down.
So when you first introduced this, did you guys, how well did it take off at first? Were people like, oh wow, Great Lakes has a light lager now?
Yeah, that's actually, we're kind of building that right now. So we're recording this, it's early summer, it's late June. When this beer came out, we got it out, it came out right at the end of summer, and as we were talking about on our tour, that's a time that's already, the second half of the year for us is very locked in. Our Oktoberfest is one of the most renowned in the country. I'm sure I don't need to tell many people on the podcast about Christmas Ale, our number one seller, despite only being out there for 2 months. So when Cold Rush came out, everyone was paying attention to those beers. So it's actually, we're just building up this beer right now. One of my jobs this year actually is leading a sampling team to get people out into the grocery stores, like for us up here, Heinen's and so on and so forth, so that people can taste the beer and they say, oh, that's great, I didn't know Great Lakes made a light beer. And then they grab a 12-pack and take it home. So it's really just kind of getting out there big time. And like you said, we had the classic Midwest straight from 50 degrees and gray to 90 degrees, right, and sunny.
Right.
I'm sure it was not that different down in Dayton, the Dayton area. So, it's kind of the perfect time. Now, it is a year-round beer. This is something, because again, people drink light beer all the time, but definitely right now it's starting to, we're making it pick up some steam by just making sense with the weather and all that stuff. People are going to start cranking a lot more light beer. So,
because like you talked about having this now, when someone like today's a Cleveland Guardian game and people walk in and want a light beer before they go over there, this has to help you guys. People are like, oh, I actually have a beer I could drink here now.
Totally, yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, I was a server here, and when I was greeting a table and someone asked what our latest beer was, and I told them Dortmunder, and it's 5.8%, and it's relatively full-bodied. It's not actually that light, so it's really nice to have that beer for people who might not have been drinking any Great Lakes before, and now there's an option for them. And then it's a great lawnmower beer. Like I said, I'm an IPA guy, but when I'm mowing the lawn, I'm gonna have something more like Cold Rush. I always have some in the fridge for when family comes over. My wife really enjoys Cold. She likes other beers too, but she really enjoys Cold Rush. So just having that beer is just another option for people to be drinking their hometown beer, right?
So how do you convince people out there that there are people out there that are stuck on their ways. If it does not taste like Busch Light, Bud Light,
That's
McUltra, they're like, we can tell the difference. We don't care what it is in front of them. How do you try to sway them? Hey, it's about the same thing as what you're drinking.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great question, because there are some people who are, they're pretty set. They've been drinking Busch Light for 30 years or whatever. So there's some people you're not going to get necessarily, but it's amazing the power of what a sampling can do, especially because the flavor profile of Cold Rush, it's light, but it has, you probably are perceiving this, it's got just a little bit more character than a typical light beer. We are a craft brewer, so it's going to have, it's extremely crushable, extremely drinkable, but there's just a little bit more, not too much flavor, but just a little bit more flavor. That's something that stands out a tiny bit. So I've experienced, and my team has experienced, they'll taste it and they're like, oh, it's really good, just because it's got that little craft edge to it, while still totally being a light beer. When someone tries it, they're like, oh, that's great. And then, honestly, it's a little businessy and stuff, but pricing's important. And when people are drinking a light beer, they expect it to be at a reasonable price. So we sell this for a 12-pack for $12.99. So you're basically getting a beer for $1 a can, which, that's a really good deal for a craft beer. So once people taste it, they say that's awesome, and they see it's $13 for a 12-pack. It's almost like an instant sell right there. So now it is only, for those who are listening, if you're further south, this is only Northeast Ohio right now. So for any listeners who are up here in the Northeast Ohio area, you'll find it. Hasn't made its way south yet, but if people really dig it up here, then we'll potentially send it further on down south.
Because a couple years ago, Ryan Geist just released their Cincy Light.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last time I talked with them, I don't think they were prepared for how much it took off on them.
Big time. Yeah, that's been huge for them, for sure.
So it's amazing, because you see all smaller ones creating light lagers, even if it's not a light lager, like a cream ale version.
Yep,
and stuff like that. So what made you do this over a cream ale or a gold ale?
Lagers in our wheelhouse here at Great Lakes, right? Like we talked about last time, Dortmunder, Elliott Ness, our first two beers, we got the lager thing down. So not that we can't brew an amazing cream ale too, but it's not the same yeast strain as the classic Great Lakes lagers. It's a crisper, I believe it's the Mexican lager strain, which just ferments out very clean. But we know how to handle lager yeast pretty well. So that's why we went with it. And we wanted this beer to be different while not being unrecognizable as Great Lakes. We wanted it to be distinct from the other offerings. So listeners out there, if you do a quick Google search, Cold Rush Great Lakes, you'll see the packaging, and there's no Great Lakes circle logo on it. That was an intentional choice. It says Great Lakes in smaller print, but it's just it's Cold Rush loud and proud. So we didn't and it makes sense for certain other brewers. Okay, this is our cream ale, it's our later beer, but it's still feels like that brewery. We wanted this to be a separate thing. And some stores even will even put Cold Rush next to Miller Lite instead of with the other craft beers. So that's part of the reason why we went light lager for this, because we want it to be a very distinct offering from other beers. Different breweries do it different ways. Obviously, Ryan Geist with the Cincy theme, you can do that, but we went with a good old cold beer route. So, and that's so, if people really enjoy it here, and they might want to.
Because I noticed on the tour, and you said, or maybe it was in your gift shop, you're a proud beer for the Cavaliers. Is this something you put into the Cavaliers right away?
It was, yeah. So we're the official craft beer of the Cavs. We have a bar in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Sorry, Rocket Arena. That's not Rocket Arena. And it's dedicated for us, so it's got 12 of our taps, eight, something like that. It's got a number of our beers, and yeah, Cold Rush is definitely prominently featured in that space. We have a particular beer brewed for the Cavs. It's part of the sports line, but yeah, anywhere there's I mean, again, pretty much anywhere people are drinking beer, we want Cold Rush to be, because there are going to be people there who want a lighter beer. But definitely sporting events, that's like made for that. We have
because are you guys in the Indians and the Browns as well?
Yeah, Browns is a little different, but we have 19.2 ounce cans of Cold Rush at Progressive Field. So, and again, it's like, I'm going to be dipping by the stadium later, so thank you for taking me a little bit earlier.
Right,
so,
you're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 90 degrees today, I think, again. So, like, a 19.2 ounce can of Cold Rush on watching a daytime baseball game sounds like perfection. So.
You know, the first time I saw a 19.2, I forget what it was, but it was, some of them I like them, but there's some other ones that are like very high ABV, and you're putting these in 19.2s. Yeah. My eyeballs just got big. I was like, I guess I'm only having one of these if I drink one.
That's the thing. So, like, our 19, well, we have a couple of things in 19.2. The next beers we'll get into, the Midwest IPAs in 19.2. But what you see out there a lot is light beer in the big format, or like an imperial beer. But it's for that reason. It's because some people, they got $10 in their wallet, and they like get two 19.2s for $5, and like that's the night. You know? Yeah. So it's really interesting because, like, I know I buy 6-packs all the time. I'm a 6-pack guy or 12-pack guy. But some people are just dipping into the convenience store, and they, you know, like just like a big twisted tea or something like that. So it's the same kind of idea, but for craft beer.
Okay.
Cool.
So when did that start coming out?
Oh, the 19.2s. The industry has been doing those probably the past like 3-4 years. COVID kind of like kicked stuff like that into gear. The economic concerns. People feel like they're getting more bang for their buck because you get the big can, and again, a lot of stores will do like 2 cans for $5 or 2 cans for $6. So you think, well, I can't buy a full 12-pack, but I can do 2 big cans. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and hey, it's just another option, right?
Right. No, like one time I saw like a dragon's milk and that thing, and then I was like, oh no.
I don't know. They actually, like, you know, Oscar Blues is famous for having started canned beer for craft, and like I remember, what's their imperial stout called? Yes. 1050. Yeah. Stovepipes at 1050. And I was like, what is this? And now it's just like, oh yeah, it's normal.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's get into the Midwest.
Yeah. I figured we should probably start light and work our way up, right? So the next beers, and for those who listened to the first podcast, and we talked about the classics, we're intentionally doing the more new school beers here today. So we still love our classics. Obviously, we still make them, and we got tons of people who still love those beers. But we got some creative brewers here, and people's tastes are constantly changing. So we're making beers for all those people too. So the next 2 beers we have coming up are Midwest IPA, and then right after that's the Midwest Hazy IPA. And Blake, I know you were curious about the whole notion of Midwest, right?
Yes.
So, what makes this beer a Midwest style IPA? When we were thinking about, we wanted to do a newer IPA. We have Commodore Perry is an excellent old school British style IPA, but people who enjoy hop forward beers today are generally looking for hop flavor. When we say hop, so the distinction here is actually really what people are looking for is hop aroma. So, and hazy IPAs made really popularize this. Tropical fruit, stone fruit, certainly brighter citrus notes and all that. And not being devoid of bitterness, but a much lower bitterness perception than in the past. Classically, IPAs are extremely bitter, and then the aromas that we
West
got.
Coast.
Yeah, old school West Coast, right? Yep. And then the aroma profile for those beers would have also been a little different, a little bit more resinous, piney. The classic, I even still see, today in 2025, I see silly reels and stuff of like someone licking a tree and they're like, oh, I just had an IPA or whatever. That's not what these beers are, right? What are you tasting before I ramble on about
it's you're very aroma, a little fruity, but it's not. My IPAs have changed in the past like 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
With for a long time I didn't like the West Coast, and all of a sudden like the West Coast has slowly started coming back, and I haven't even noticed it like out in the world,
totally.
in the Dayton. I don't know if it's like it up here, but in the Dayton area and Cincinnati, West Coast has come back.
Totally.
But they're not. They're calling them West Coast, but they're almost like a mid. It's similar to what I'm drinking here. That they're similar to the Midwest because they're not going full force on how bitter the West Coast was.
Totally.
It's a different type of West Coast,
It's part of what's so cool about, and I'm a philosophy guy, so just human nature and stuff like that. We're constantly growing and evolving and being inspired by something else and then creating a new thing. So like when we were thinking, and the contemporary West Coast is much paler in color than old school West Coast, and like you said, the old school ones are much more bitter too. So this Midwest thing is kind of like, the idea with Midwest was to bridge the best of more classic West Coast IPA and marry that with the best of New England IPA. So West Coast, contemporary West Coast is a little different. When you think of a classic West Coast IPA, it is, first of all, it's clear. Which hasn't been as in vogue lately, right? Haze has been the thing. Classic West Coast is clear. Classic West Coast IPA, if you dig bitterness and all that, it's got high level of drinkability. It's snappy, lighter body, not light, but like leaner bodied and so on. So we wanted that aspect. We wanted the clarity, and we wanted what's key is the drinkability of a West Coast IPA. But we didn't want the bitterness. Bitterness is not nice, right? And this is a Midwest IPA, which means it's got to be nice, right? Because I'm nice, you're nice, we're Midwest nice, right?
Right.
And then we wanted to take the best of New England IPA. Now, New England IPA, known for those bursting tropical fruit, stone fruit aromas that rightfully so captivated so many people over the past 7+ years because really cool flavors. Super low in bitterness, sometimes too low in bitterness. It can almost be too sweet. And then like a lot of hazy IPAs will be super thick because there's all that wheat and oats in there to create the haze and create a fuller mouthfeel to lower the bitterness. So we wanted the aromas, but not so much that heft that comes from the grain that goes into those beers. So you take from the West Coast, you take that drinkability, you marry it with the aromatic quality of a New England, and you got yourself a Midwest style IPA. It's drinkable, it's approachable. This beer, the goal with Midwest IPA is that anybody who drinks beer will potentially enjoy this. Now, in the end, some people are just never going to drink an IPA. When I'm doing my samplings, when our tour guides are doing their tours, when our servers are serving tables and stuff, you give someone a taste of, they say, I don't like IPAs. You say, try this. And they try Midwest IPA and they say, oh, that's pretty good. That's nice, because it's not as bitter as those classic versions. So now the other key is, and I try to stress this a lot too, just because it's lower in bitterness and stuff and it's approachable, that does not mean that it's watered down. If you like IPAs, you will also like this beer because it still has all the hop flavor that you want in an IPA.
Yeah. So while we're doing this, I just want to do a comparison with this. So I'm going to go ahead and try that.
Absolutely. You should.
Side by side.
Yeah. These two beers, we like talking about Midwest and Midwest Hazy hand in hand because they're...
Oh, wow, that's different.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So... Midwest Hazy, a lot of the times when you see like certain beer and then hazy version, it's like, oh, okay, it's a hazy version of the original beer. These are actually two fully separate recipes. Midwest Hazy is a totally different grain bill. It's a fairly different hop bill from regular Midwest IPA. Regular Midwest IPA has Citra in it because it's 2025, and everybody loves Citra hops.
I don't think Citra is the hop that will ever die in craft
Exactly.
beer.
That's like the salt. That's the salt of American craft beer is Citra hops. Now, of course, Midwest Hazy also has Citra, but regular Midwest has Cascade. So it's got the classic, right? It's got a little bit of that old school along with the new school. And there's a couple other hops in Midwest. Midwest Hazy has got like Sabro in it, which Sabro sometimes has that coconut thing to it. Idaho 7, a host of distinct hops in Midwest Hazy. So they're actually two totally different beers. The key is that Midwest Hazy has that same nice character that regular Midwest IPA has. What do you think about sipping Midwest? What do you think of the body?
Oh,
mouthfeel?
It's
I'm leading you right now, but yeah.
no, the body is nice, light. It's not heavy at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit of it's a more drinkable hazy IPA. And there's nothing wrong with a super thick, totally turbid, when you look at it, it's totally turbid IPA. But it's tough to have more than one of those. And sometimes it's nice to be able to have 2-3 cans of the same beer and not feel like your palate's getting worn out. So that's how, even though obviously because Midwest Hazy is more closely aligned with New England because it's hazy, it still has that same nice spirit that the regular Midwest IPA has. That's kind of the goal there.
No, because it's kind of like a refreshing hazy. There's no shot at anyone that make hazy IPAs, but a lot of them just, maybe what you were saying, your palate just is getting overboard with it, that a lot of them just start tasting similar to each other.
Right.
There's not a distinctive difference. Some of the hazies all taste the same, but this one's extremely different.
Yeah.
Some from the other ones out there. No shot at anyone, because I love hazy IPAs, but there is like a distinct difference.
Yep. That's the whole goal, is to have a little bit higher level of drinkability and all that. And again, I love going to the tap rooms and getting a little flight and tasting the subtle differences between different hazies. But when you're buying a 6-pack from the store, it's a little different, and you want something that's a little bit easier to drink. So, well, again, the key here, it's still super, super flavorful hop-wise, not watered down in any way. So.
And I'm assuming people are still looking for that hazy IPA, because I remember when that first train came into craft beer, they were like, "Oh, hazy won't last," and it has stayed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I've been holding the table. We have a wobbly table, listeners of the podcast. So, a lot of brewers kind of thought that the haze craze was a fad, but that lower bitterness was a distinct driver of a lot of people who just didn't drink IPAs before started drinking them because of hazies. So, but I think the key is right now what you're kind of seeing is, like you said, West Coast is coming back. I think things have basically just leveled out a little bit, whereas like everything was hazy for 5 years. And now people are like, I like a hazy, but I also want something else to go with it. So that's kind of the idea with having Midwest IPA and Midwest Hazy IPA, is that you can pick up a 6-pack of each, and then you have a nice variety. That's what I do. I usually, when I go down to the gift shop, take some beer home, I usually get I'll get a 12-pack of regular Midwest because I really like it, and then I'll get a 6-pack of Hazy, and then you can kind of go back and forth and not get, there's nothing wrong with drinking the same beer over and over, and I'm not as adventurous as I used to be, but to have a little bit of variety with two different Midwest-style IPAs is
So if you were
nice.
drinking these two and then you would put something like the Commodore next to it, what would the biggest difference would you probably notice out of it?
The biggest differences are going to be that bitterness. Commodore Perry we clocked at roughly 70-ish IBUs. Midwest IPA clocks in around 45. So you're going to definitely notice a difference in the bitterness. And then the actual flavors too. Commodore is going to have that more old school, piney, resinous type character to it. There's more malt in Commodore Perry too. You're going to notice that a little bit of that caramely type thing going on. A lot of classic American craft beers would use those caramel malts. So nothing like that in the Midwest IPA.
So we might have talked about this on the first one, but when they first came out with Commodore, were a lot of people knowing what IPA was when they first brought it to Ohio, or was there like a little learning curve what this is supposed to be?
I think there's a little bit of a learning curve, yeah. Even Burning River, the pale ale that we made back in the day, I shouldn't say back in the day, that beer retired a couple years ago, but when it came out in the 90s, I remember seeing this in an old school like magazine clipping or beer review, and it described Burning River as like incredibly hoppy, and like in 2025 we'd be like, no. Like it was a great beer, but like that beer was almost like the definition of balance between hops and malt and stuff. It was hoppy, but it also had that distinct malt backbone. So Commodore Perry, I would imagine, was even more, like. Now, there's some people who knew. Some people had probably been to the West Coast and knew what IPA was. But it's crazy to think about a time where, like, just even the notion of an IPA was like, what are you talking? No one would know what IPA was. You'd say India Pale Ale, right? Mm-hmm. And even then, people still wouldn't really know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So
then when did the Loch Ness Monster come? Because that had to been like extremely different too.
Yeah, Lake Erie Monster was. I want to say Monster came out in the later 2000s. So like for a long time, it was just for IPAs for us. It was just Commodore Perry. To my knowledge, there may have been stuff that was in the pub, but I don't think so. It was, and then Nosferatu is kind of like. Well, actually, we call it a double red IPA today. That's not what we called it when it first came out. Nosferatu actually goes back to our early days as well. But yeah, even when Lake Erie Monster came out late 2000s, that was like, whoa, especially because it's 9.5%. So even at that time, people were still like 7% was still high, So let alone something that's 9+. Now, of course, all this stuff's is completely normal because craft beer's proliferated so much, but. It's amazing how quickly things have changed.
But no, IPA, I'm glad there's still people trying to grow it a little bit. That's one thing I love about craft beer is there's still new stuff coming out on different things. Like, IPA has been done all over the country. Everyone's done something different. But it's always unique to see someone trying something new with it, trying to see what it can do.
The whole thing, this whole thing was built on people wanting to be creative, wanting more, pushing boundaries and all that stuff. And 40 years into craft beer, we're still doing that, which is pretty cool to see. The question is, where do things keep going after this, right? So there's all sorts of alternative stuff going out there in the beverage world. So was this your first hazy you guys ever made? No, we've done some hazies before. We did a beer called Hazecraft, and we did stuff in the pub before that too. But Hazecraft was the IPA, the year-rounder that preceded Midwest Hazy. So that was 2020. So, and that one was good, but it was our first stab, and it's for people who have been. This is no slam to our brewing team or anything like that, but when you brew things in a certain way for a really long time, and then all of a sudden, boom, people want something really different, it's like, wait a minute, how do we do that? So Hazecraft was a really, really, really solid hazy, but I can say with certainty Midwest Hazy is like really hitting that like wheelhouse for a drinkable, repeatable hazy IPA.
Mm-hmm. So this one looks hazy too.
Yeah, we can transition to, I want to talk about the big three of our new beers, and you guys who are listening, now if you're down south, absolutely you will see Midwest IPA, and I'm sure Midwest Hazy is down there too. It's in all the typical stores, you'll find it out there, so hopefully we worked up a thirst for that for the listeners out there. And those are kind of the newer beers for us, and I just wanted to say the old school beers are still, of course, super duper essential for us. But what I love is that we've maintained our history at Great Lakes. We've maintained the tradition of Dortmunder and Edmund Fitzgerald and beers like that. And they're still super important for us. While at the same time, we're also exercising this creativity with nailing a light lager, getting our Midwest style IPAs out there. So I had to talk about those, but since Blake's up here at the brewery, we also absolutely had to talk about some of our pub exclusive beers that are on tap right now. So what we're tasting here right now it's our Ohio City Extra Pale Ale. For those of you who are listening, and if you haven't been up here before, the brew pub is located and the brew pub is where we got our start at Great Lakes. We opened up as a brewery restaurant in 1988. All the beer was brewed here and consumed on premise, which was a radical idea at that time. It's totally normal for us today, but in 1988, that was something unusual. We still have our original brew house, which we took a look at earlier on the tour, and we still brew some unique recipes on that system today. So this one's called, and the neighborhood that the pub resides in is called Ohio City. So it's a neighborhood of downtown Cleveland. So Ohio City Extra Pale Ale. It's another hop forward offering. It does have some haze to it this year. Yeah, take a little sip and see what you think. You dig it?
Yeah.
That's the shift beer of choice right now. If you work down here at the brewery, at the end of the day, you get a little shift beer. So I'm sure other breweries you've talked to do the shift beer thing too. Nothing to keep employee morale up better than the shift beer at the end of the day. So
I wish my work did that, but it's
I
kind
know,
of
right? Yeah. There's some perks to being in craft beer for sure. So this beer is one of, I want to say, looking at the board, we had like 5-ish pub exclusives on tap out of about 16 different beers we have on the beer board right now. So it's pretty cool. When we have so many other regular beers that we put out there, that we're able to have so many unique offerings that you can't get anywhere outside the brew pub walls. This one, part of the reason why it's a shift beer of choice is because it's 4.8%, which for craft beer, it's a pretty low ABV. So after a good day's work, you can go downstairs to and literally the offices are connected to the brew pub. So I can literally walk from my desk downstairs, walk straight into the pub and get my shift beer, which is pretty nice.
Do you take it back up to you to help you finish the day off, or?
No. So anyway, I mean, every once in a while, if it's a day where everyone's really grinding, it's totally cool to go grab a beer, bring it back up. But most of the time, we get our stuff done, we go downstairs, and then it's just, I want to say it's off, but work always comes up when you're hanging out with coworkers. But it's also, it's so cool grabbing a beer, and then you're hanging out with your coworkers, just talking about whatever, and you're interacting with the regulars and all that stuff. So when it's 4.8%, you can have a couple of shifties after work, you know what I mean, and you go home and you have a normal evening and all that stuff. But it's also like, what are you getting in the flavor of this one?
A little more bitterness, but it's not bad. But it's it's like a pale ale.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's we were talking about Citra. This will shock you. It's 100% Citra hops. So
yeah.
And this one's super fresh. He just tapped this one less than a week ago, and he brewed it in like late May. So this is about as fresh as it gets. Just bursting with Citra hop character. Obviously the hop's called Citra, so there's a lot of citrus notes to it, but so bright and sunny feeling. So it's perfect we're in these solstice days right now where the sun's at its height. So it's a really, really. This is a recipe he's brewed a couple of times. This is part of what's cool about the pub beers is that last year this beer was clear, and this year he decided to try this as a hazy. So that's the fun little nuances you can do when you're brewing something out of the brew pub. You get this, it's the same beer, but it's also kind of not the same beer. So
how surprised are people when they get, like, they've only had the beers, out in the public, and they come here and they see your board, and, oh, you guys do more than what I thought you did.
Totally. There are some people who, I mean, there's, it's always interesting, especially when like I'm on the marketing side. So like when you're in sales and marketing, like all your products and like the back of your hand, so you can always be ready to talk about them, so on and so forth. But there are people who have lived in Cleveland their whole lives, and they may even be craft beer fans or Great Lakes fans, and they don't know stuff outside Conway's Irish Ale or Oktoberfest or Dortmunder. They don't know that we even do our newer stuff, let alone stuff that's only brewed out of the restaurant. Some people are surprised to find that we even have a restaurant. Some people, so it's really interesting to see that. There can be an element of surprise for people who come in expecting just to have a regular old Dortmunder, and then they see all these other options too. So,
because one of the things I hate the most with craft beer is there is a stigma out there.
Yeah.
When you go over, I don't know when they determine if you go over a certain barrel size or something like that, you're no longer craft. You're not. You're not innovated. I mean, being near Cincinnati, you hear about what Sammy Adams or Ryan guys or you guys, but that is further from the truth.
Right.
Especially if you go into their tap room, like you, or if you go to Ryan guys, say you guys have a huge wall of beers that you probably wouldn't even know existed unless you actually came to that tap room.
Right. Yep. Yeah. We have our classics, and then we are trying to let people know about the beers that go in the cans that are creative. But you come to the tap room itself, and it's like, whoa, Great Lakes has a hazy extra pale ale. The other beers in the flight here, we have a dark Mexican lager we'll get to shortly. There's a Grodziski that's on tap, light smoked beer. There's even there's a throwback double IPA that's on tap right now. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I'm not even sure what that is. So it's a 90s inspired double IPA. So part of what's so enchanting about coming down to the brewery space is that you see all the creativity that our brewers are able to express because the beers are being served right here. So,
and I know that everyone's. I know I have a lot of people that are always busy, so they don't get out. But I think it's one of the lost arts in craft beer a little bit that people aren't traveling like they once did,
right,
which I
totally
wish people did more. Just because you get to go, when you go to a brewery, you have a different experience. All the beers taste good, but it's just something about having a beer from the tap room that it just tastes little. It's
super fresh.
It hits the notes.
And I think something that's still important for craft is like the people, the culture, and all that. So like when you're hanging out at a craft brewery tap room or brew pub or whatever the format is, you're getting the beer usually in its peak form. It's usually extremely fresh. Like the extra pale ale you're drinking has never gone outside of stainless steel. It's always, other than the draft lines that brought it up to and the hoses, but it was never kegged off. It was never canned. This went straight from a fermenter into a serving tank, and then it went straight to the tap, and it went straight to your glass. So that means that beer is basically as perfect as it's going to be, because there's no those risks that happen when you package beer. It's not happening here. It's as fresh as it can be for the most part. And then a friendly bartender, gave it to you and strike up conversation. And there are plenty of people who come into Great Lakes, who have been coming into Great Lakes for 2 or 3 decades, who are first name basis with bartenders who have been here for that long too. So it's all part of the charm of being down here.
Yeah. So when you hire people, do they go? Because I know you took me through. They do go through a Cicerone type thing. Do all your people you hire go through that to know what they're serving? Is that what the main purpose of that is? So
the sensory space, on our tour, we went through our recently upgraded sensory space, which, it's in line with industry standards with regards to eliminating distractions, using modern technology like Draft Lab, a little software I forgot to tell you about, but computerized technology for recording the data that we got from Sensory Panel. That's there for quality assurance. Make sure everything going out the doors tasting exactly how it should, brand consistency. As we talked about on our little tour, having data that demonstrates shelf life of the beers. The rare times we get a complaint, we can verify whether or not there's actually a flaw by having our trusted panelists taste that beer. But yes, there, to a certain extent, we want everyone in the company, even people who are not public facing, to have a certain, we don't require it, but we encourage it as much as we can, that people have a certain amount of familiarity with what our beers are supposed to taste like. We talk about off flavors a lot in the industry. We probably talk about it a little bit more than we need to, because thankfully quality's fairly prevalent these days. Not always, but fairly prevalent. But the key is, and this is one of my big things as an educator at the company, is that everyone who works at Great Lakes, and really at other craft brewers too, everyone is an ambassador in some way. Because it's just kind of like the nature of beer, period, especially craft beer. Is like you say, I work at Great Lakes, and then someone will be like, I saw there are these new beers, this Midwest IPA. What's that about? And so we're not going to require accounting to be an expert beer taster, but they can say, hey, it's Midwest. It's a super approachable IPA. It's got awesome hop flavor while being really easy drinking. That's absolutely what we encourage. Now, if everyone also goes and participates in sensory, that's also great, because we want as many tasters as possible. Cultivating a culture of employee ownership, because employees do have a share of ownership of the company, and then cultivating that attitude of brand ambassadorship is something that's pretty big. For sure.
That's something that you go to some just local bars that sometimes I wish, I know this would be really expensive, but sometimes you go to a really good craft beer bar, but the bartender there that's working there has no clue
sure
about anything, and you ask them, hey, what do you, and they're like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Luckily I'm in the craft beer, but if you had some of that training outside of these walls, that people knew what they were, hey, yeah, I recommend this.
Right.
Over, I don't know, just I'll make you something or something like that. And I think that would be one thing that could, people, I know beer sales are not gone down a little bit, but,
right.
in general, but if they had that little bit of knowledge of pointing people in the right direction, I think it would help us tremendously.
Indeed. Speaking my language. I'm the beer professor here at Great Lakes, so that's...
Because it has to be stressful. Pull your hair out too. You go to a place.
I don't have any hair left, brother. Yeah.
Especially if you go to a place around here that actually has your beers on tap, and they don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and that's the whole. The brewery of our the way we operate. Obviously, we have to do that. We want to do that, but once it gets in someone else's hands, who knows how they're going to talk about it. So. And so we also invest in working with, no, you can't force any place to do training, but we're very happy to offer training to our partners. I go in and I'll talk with the bar staff about, hey, this is what Cold Rush is all about, and most people out there, it doesn't even take that much. It's just a little bit, Cold Rush, it's Cleveland's light beer, it's 4%, it's 100 calories. That's all you need to know, right? And then it's nice when you get deeper in conversation. And if you're going to a craft beer bar, or if you're going to a brewery, taproom or something, you expect a certain level of depth, right?
Right.
So yeah, we it's tough to do it right now, but we have done the Cicerone, certification, certified beer server for our pub staff here. We cultivate the higher levels too for those who want to pursue that. So advanced Cicerone here, we have a number of certified Cicerones on staff too. We're actually one of the few breweries in the country that has 2 advanced Cicerones on staff. So not to toot my horn, but I'm tooting Jacob, our sensory specialist horn. So yeah.
Because luckily I got a place in Troy called A Cellar that does an amazing job. That's brought this back a little bit. But before COVID, there used to be what used to be called tap takeovers, where someone would take over a bar, a brewery would, and they would bring their sales reps and stuff like that, and you would have just a tasting night. Those were always very fun to do. And luckily, Troy has a place in Troy, Ohio that is actually trying to bring that back in a certain way, having tastings. And I hope that's something that lights to spark on other places. Oh, maybe we should start looking at stuff like this.
I think stuff like that got a little lost for a little while, but I think there's still a place for fun events like that, especially now that it's a new context. I'm not trying to contextualize stuff with COVID constantly, but like there was a certain industry shift that happened, and people thought maybe things would go back. They have not fully gone back to the way they were, but maybe there's some stuff that we haven't paid as much attention to that was valuable pre-COVID that we could kind of bring back. I love the idea of tap takeovers and all that. Just create some excitement, It's got to be within reason and everything, but yeah.
Because I always joke, because during I'm sure many others where I was looking at essential worker, so during COVID, I was still in and out every day.
Sure.
Going to work and stuff. So I just didn't have the effect on me that others. But I was excited once they were lifted that ban. Oh, you can go back.
Right.
I was ready to go.
Yeah, totally.
So, all right, what?
We got a couple other pub exclusives. So for those of you who are listening who are further out, hopefully our discussion of these pub exclusives entices you to come up to Cleveland and visit us at 2516 Market Avenue in Cleveland. So let's do the dark Mexican lager, because that smoke will I could go either way. Let's just do it. We committed. Let's go for it. Yeah. So this one right here, this is actually, we have someone who manages the brew pub system, the 7-barrel system. He's responsible for cleaning the lines. Certainly any beer that's brewed on the system, he tends to. Steve Foreman, he's awesome. He's the man. Quite the character. We love him. But we also, on this system, and then we saw our pilot system when we were on the tour, we'll often give our regular shift brewers over in the brewery the opportunity to create their own recipe on those systems. Depending on, again, in the pub, it's kind of nice because people are often coming down here just to try something new and different from us. So sometimes we can just brew something that like, hey, I want to do this. And it's like, yeah, I think that would kind of fit with what's going on the beer board, and we cook it up. So we also do, on the pilot system, the brewers are able to do IPA recipes that go into our IPA variety pack and stuff. But this one right here was brewed by Joe, and oh my goodness, I think Jason brewed this one too. And sorry guys if you're listening if I screwed that up, sorry, but a couple of the brewers wanted to do a dark Mexican lager, and that was brewed on our 7-barrel system here in the pub. So this is basically like Negra Modelo, but brewed by Great Lakes. So we have our seasonal Mexican lager with lime. That's your paler version. That's your like Corona with the lime squeezed in. This is straight up dark Mexican lager, so it's a blend of like stuff like Vienna malt, Munich malt. I think there's some sort of Carafa malt in there too. So it's got a nice textured, toasty, slightly caramely malt profile. Saaz hops throughout, so it's got that rounded, minty, like noble hop character. And it's just really fun having one of our pub exclusives be kind of closely related to one of our big time seasonals. So like if someone came in here and they already love Mexican lager with lime, they got a pint of that, and servers like, hey, we also have this dark Mexican lager on tap that's pub exclusive. That's like, oh, I gotta try that too. So it makes it really fun for someone coming in here to be able to have a beer like this on tap.
Oh no, this is another one on this hot day. I could probably drink a couple and be happy.
Yeah, and it's like it's got to be mid-5s or something like that for ABV.
So it's not something that's going to hit you too extremely
exactly,
heavy.
Yeah. Most of the pub exclusives tend to be more moderate in ABV. The throwback double IPA is a little higher. It's almost 9, but most of the time it's something a little bit more sessionable. Ultimately, if it's a beer that somebody can only get here, you want someone to be able to have a couple pints of it, no problem. So This one pairs well with food. Any more, typically more malt forward beers will pair pretty well with food. So this is one that's going to work well. We did do recently a major refresh at the brew pub, both with the spaces, which you've seen a little bit of. But you've never been. Have you been here before?
Once.
One time before. Okay, so you may remember
It was. I won't lie. It was brief.
Yeah.
We had a beer because my buddy and I we were doing brewery hops all weekend, so we were just in and out of places.
Yep. Gotcha. Yep. So
which I'll advise, if you do that, have some days in there. Don't try to do everything in one day.
There's like almost 10 breweries down here in Ohio City. So
no, I was just talking about Cleveland in general.
Oh, Cleveland in general, sure.
I forget. We worked for 2 Class. Is that some brewery?
Working Class.
Something, but then we went up to like Terrestrial and went all the way around, and
Sure.
did. By the time we got done, I was done.
It's a lot of beer in one day, right? Yeah. I mean, Cleveland generally, you definitely need a couple days to hit most of the spots. So, and even just in downtown, even in Ohio City, there's a number of spots to hit. So we did do this. In addition to refreshing the spaces, we pretty much refreshed the entire food menu. So for those of you who like to enjoy a delicious meal when you're enjoying your beer as well, the Great Lakes Brew Pub is an excellent spot when you're in Cleveland. We got back to a little bit back closer to our roots with regards to local sourcing of ingredients. We had just, I already said I'm trying not to do too much COVID comparison stuff, but everything got really expensive, right? And running a restaurant became even more difficult than it was. So we had drifted a little bit away from the local sourcing of ingredients in recent years. New chef came in, got us a little bit closer to the local sourcing. So using produce from local farm partners, vendors that are a little bit more Cleveland based as opposed to regional or further out or whatever. And we had a team lunch here a couple weeks ago, and I liked the food before, but it's gotten to an even higher level now with this new chef. So this dark Mexican lager would pair with a lot of those dishes. But one way or the other, whatever beer you order, the food's going to be awesome if you come up here and have a plate.
Yeah. So when we were talking about, my trip in Cleveland last time, though. How do you describe this Cleveland beer scene? It is absolutely. I mean, Cincinnati has a big one, but you guys are just insane. About how many breweries? What? Yeah. When was the real boom up here that you remember in Cleveland? They're like, oh wow, this is really taking off.
Yeah, I mean and part of it has to do with us at Great Lakes because we were the first. So there's been an established beer scene for 37 years up here. But it was really, it was like some other spots too. It was like the 2010s where things started to kind of go to the next level up here. So that's when some of the spots you mentioned are buddies like Terrestrial, Noble Beast, Masthead, and so on. They opened in the mid-2010s. That's when things kind of went to the next level, and we had 30, 40 plus breweries just like, I'm pretty sure it's like 30 breweries within Cleveland and proper, let alone the suburbs surrounding us too. So, and part of what's cool, so when we were on the tour, we saw a photo that's hanging in the space right next to the original brew house. And in that photo, we have our original brewmaster, Thane Johnson, and we have our current brewmaster, Mark Hunger. But we also have Matt Cole from Fatheads, Andy Tavikram across the street from us at Market Garden, Luke Purcell down at Collision Bend. I think part of, and this is true to a certain extent in other cities too, but like part of what makes the Cleveland beer scene so fun is the family tree. So many brewers got their start with us at Great Lakes. They went on and founded their own spots. And then at this point in history, we have the people who started working at Fatheads, never worked at Great Lakes, they started working at Fatheads, and then they went on to open their own spot after that too. So like Sean at Noble Beast, he was a Fatheads guy. and he now owns and runs Noble Beast. So we're all still extremely chummy. Obviously, there's the business side of things too, but craft beer is still craft beer. And like, I'll go to Masthead and text Clark, who runs the barrel aging program, and see if he's there or whatever, and we'll have a beer together. Even though the sales reps who aren't technically we're competing will still meet up and have a beer. So like, that's part of what's so cool about craft beer generally, but absolutely in Cleveland itself, like there's still that certain collegiality where like we're willing to share yeast with each other, and oh, how do you do this? Oh, X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. So that's part of what makes the Cleveland brewing scene so cool. And part of that has to do with that kind of familial feel, because everyone kind of worked at another spot before.
You guys do a lot of collabs up here together?
There's a certain amount of collabs going on. There haven't been that many in recent years, and we haven't done as many collabs as others. It's something that I would personally love to do, especially on the system right here. But collab events, yes. Collab beers, not as much, but collab events, there's been a solid amount of.
So, one of the other interesting notes you had on your tour that I found interesting, I want to dive in more, is that when we were talking about your bottles and your canning and how the processes of how you can. So talk to me a little more on, how you have to take your truck that ships your beer, because that's the first time I've ever heard someone say, hey, we tank beer somewhere else.
It's an interesting setup, that's for sure. So, this is my opportunity to plug the tour here at Great Lakes too, by the way. So any of you who are listening, we do brewery tours typically most of the year Friday evenings, all day Saturday, and then I believe there's one Sunday around noon. And you get to see the facility that Blake and I walked through earlier. So it's where we brew all of our beer outside of the pub exclusive stuff that we're talking about right now. So, if you're in Southern Ohio and you're listening, that's where the beer is brewed. Come on up and see it, and you'll see cool stuff like the first stop on the brewery tour is our bottling line. So when we started up, that facility was opened in 1998. So it's been around for a while, and at the time that we opened, craft beer was enjoyed in bottles. That's what you did. It was perceived as being higher quality. So that's what we have in that facility, and we're in basically what's downtown Cleveland. So our production facility is kind of crammed into this little city block. So when all of a sudden in the mid-2010s, everyone started canning their beer and people wanted to get their beer in cans, we didn't really have a place to put a canning line in our facility. We didn't want to rip out the bottling line because a lot of our longtime fans still enjoy bottled beer. So we ended up about 30 minutes away from us in downtown Cleveland in Strongsville, which is one of the suburbs. We have a big warehouse there where we have our canning line. So to get the beer down from the brewery to the canning line, we have these tanker trucks that hold like 400 kegs worth of beer. And we fill them up, takes the ride down I-71, and gets transferred over into the canning line in that facility. So it's an unusual setup, but what's great, and as we were talking about on the tour, it was like that beer from the can tastes just like it does from the bottle, tastes just like it does from a keg that was filled up in the brewery itself. So quality is number one for us at Great Lakes, and we ensure that we maintain that quality even in an unusual setup where the beer is packaged pretty far away.
So when you do that process, what are some of the I'm assuming when you, because like you said on tour, you don't want to move a beer more than you have to,
right?
The fear of air or bad bacteria. So what's the process from putting it into, is the truck or the tanker, is it like a chilled tanker that keeps the beer somewhat? Definitely.
I mean, it's like a giant keg, so it'll have the glycol chilling that like a fermenter would have and all that. One of the solutions that we came up with, so the fear is oxygen pickup, right? So that's just going to stale beer more quickly, and you're transferring from vessel to vessel. There's a greater chance for oxygen pickup. If I'm not mistaken, the solution was to have a little bit of active yeast in the tanker so that as the beer is being transported, any oxygen pickup would be scavenged by the yeast. And so that means the beer will be in the same state oxidation-wise when it gets down to the canning line. So like that's the big thing right there, quality control-wise, that we implemented to make sure that that beer stays the same on that journey down there. Right. And then, other than that,
is there like a certain time they have to get down there, or you do it so where, like, let's say there was like I'm assuming Cleveland traffic is fun, just like Cincinnati, Dayton traffic.
Totally, yeah. And thankfully, so like the shifts here are it's the first shift 7 to 3. Mm-hmm. So, and we're in downtown Cleveland. The canning facility is out in the suburbs. So thankfully, pretty much the entire time that we would be tankering beer back and certainly tankering beer down, even if it's during rush hour, we're going against rush hour. So should be free. And then theoretically, if the tanker's coming back up north, it's after rush hour. So I think they do a good job.
How many trips do they normally do a day?
I am not 100% certain, but start at certain times depending on production needs, like a couple times a day, back and forth.
Probably, especially since we mentioned a little bit, you've been brewing Oktoberfest.
Yep.
For a little bit now, and then like we said, Christmas sale, it's probably not that far off.
Yep, Christmas sale's coming up. It's late June, and we're definitely thinking about
So
Christmas
when do you guys
sales.
start your Oktoberfest? What is
we started that. I actually, my good friend who works in maintenance dropped off some low-fill bottles of Oktoberfest to me yesterday. So, which means we started brewing it. When you're on the production side and the sales and marketing side, you're always, for a brewery like us, you're always thinking 3+ months ahead. So first brew of Oktoberfest was not long after Memorial Day.
So
pretty wild.
So if you're all over brewing all that, how do you make time to brew all your other core beers?
Just that's why we got the supply chain managers, right? So make sure we're getting orders from distributors for certain products, making sure we're timing everything properly to make sure we fit everything else in. And like for during Christmas sale production, it's like brew a lot of Christmas sales, squeeze in the Dortmunder, brew a lot of Christmas sales, squeeze in the Midwest IPA in between. But thankfully, we've been doing this for 37 years, so
you guys got
there's a certain cadence and rhythm that we have just from experience. But yeah, there's a lot of pivoting that has to be done too, for sure. So.
All right, let's get into the last one. I know you got a Cleveland game coming up.
Yeah, all good. Yeah. So we saved the nerdiest of the beers for last. This is our Grodziski, which...
Oh, wow. Smell.
I'm going to guess you had one before, but yeah.
I've had some smoked beer. So.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So we got this is our, it's Polish style smoked lager, 100% oak smoked wheat. And again, part of the luxury of having a smaller system is that we can do stuff a little bit more authentically. So like on the big system, we have to have a certain amount of efficiencies, which means, first of all, we're not going to do a smoked beer on the big system, right? Because it's not going to, people aren't going to buy that in the stores. But for certain things on the bigger system, it's like just from cost, it's just the realities of running a business is like we have to use certain kinds of ingredients. In the small system, Steve or whoever's brewing can do a little bit more spare no expense. So this guy right here is 100% oak smoked wheat. There's a solid hop charge in there. I want to say, I think you used Mount Hood for this one because the hop character kind of takes a back seat to the smoke.
I mean, this tastes like you're smoking on a Sunday afternoon.
That's right.
And you get all that oak smell, and that's exactly what it tastes like.
Absolutely. Yep. This is I mentioned the extra pale ale as a shift beer of choice. This one's also a shift beer of choice because this guy's only 3.8%. So you can get a nice, hefty. We do 20-ounce pours now at the brewery, the 20-ounce shifty, and it's 3.8%. Sip on the smoke. It's the smoke. For those of you out there who haven't had a smoked beer, don't be alarmed. You smell it and you kind of get a little bit of the campfire smell. But you actually sip it. As you sip it, it only takes 2 or 3 sips. that smoke character is actually super refreshing. So it turns into an extremely, we say, sessionable beer. You can have a number of beers of this kind of beer in a session. Session's got a more British term for hanging out with your friends having beers. So this one we brewed in particular. So the brew pub will do a lot of events, and even at certain times we'll brew certain beers in the pub for certain events. So Dingus Day was a little bit ago. Dingus Day is a big thing in Cleveland. That's the day after Easter. So, it was 2 months ago. We brewed this beer for Dingus Day, since it's a Polish, and Dingus Day is like a Polish cultural holiday. So, again, smoke beers, they're cool. Not necessarily the biggest seller, but, they hold up just fine. So, even though this has been on tap for a couple months, it's still tasting as it should. Since it's not focused on hop character or whatever. But that's just another cool thing about what we can do here at the brew pub is like we have this big celebration on Dingus Day. We can brew a beer specifically for that event. And it just makes it really fun for people coming in the door here when they're like, oh, it's Dingus Day. Oh, they have a Grodziski on tap and all that. So it just makes things come even more alive for people who come by here.
So we've talked about this a lot, but when someone comes up to your brew pub or into Cleveland, what should they expect, and what do you want people to take away when they come into a place? Yeah,
totally. I think everything down here at the pub is important. The food's important, but beer number one. You can hopefully, if you come down here, dare I say, when you come down here to Cleveland for a brew pub visit, you can try our classics straight from the stores and the newer beers that we put into cans and stuff. There's nothing, when you buy a 6-pack of Midwest IPA from the grocery store, it's going to be great. But it's going to be even greater when you try it fresh from right here at our brew pub, because we I actually forgot to mention this on the tour, but we have beer line that runs directly from the brewery across the street. For those of you who haven't been here, the production facility is right across the street from the restaurant. We have beer line that actually goes underneath the city street and feeds into the serving tanks here for the brew pub. So when you have something like a Midwest IPA or some of our other bigger beers, they'll often be pumped directly from the brewery across the street. So you're going to try it at its peak quality. So number one takeaway is you're going to be having amazing beer when you're down here. And then again, all the pub exclusives are just so fun because it allows the brewers to express their creativity. So you're gonna experience some unique stuff. With the food, the locally sourcing is huge, which just like beer, you want to enjoy beer as fresh as possible. Ideally, we should be enjoying our food as fresh as possible too. So if people are listening to this podcast relatively recently to its publication, it's summertime. We're going to be getting a lot of crops from our local farm partners in probably mere weeks from now, right? If not within the next month or two. So we're going to have stuff on the menu that reflects the produce that's coming from our local farm partners. So that's something that you don't get at every restaurant, period, let alone brewery restaurants. And I think the third and final thing that you really want, you should look forward to and expect, we mentioned that before, is the people. The people who work here at Great Lakes, all throughout the company, but certainly the ones who work in the pub, are friendly. We talked about Midwest Nice a lot. They're so friendly, warm, welcoming. They know their stuff. We talked about knowledge too. Our people here absolutely know what they're talking about with regards to the beer and the other stuff we got going on throughout the restaurant. So you'll have great beer, you'll have great food, and there's going to be great people who are going to serve it to you and cook it for you. If you go on a tour, your tour guide's going to be a wonderful storyteller, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what's your proudest moment so far being at Great Lakes?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's been 13 years, so there's been a lot of good stuff here. I'm still thrilled that my good friend and our sensory lead, Jacob Eaton, he and I both studied for and passed the advanced Cicerone exam in 2023, just a couple of years ago. And Cicerone is something that's not a requirement, but it only helps a brewery if you have someone who has a professional certification like that. So I think it's so cool and valuable that here at Great Lakes, we're one of a very small handful of breweries that has not just one, but two advanced Cicerones on staff. So, and I think the count for ACs at this point is probably slightly above 200, but you got two at a brewery and there's barely 200 in the entire world. It's pretty cool. So that's got to be my number one. And still, I'm more in the sales and marketing world than ever these days, but I'm still an educator at heart. So, and a 1B would be the sampling program that we've built out so far this year. Has been a really cool way to apply beer education in a place where an ordinary place where people are buying beer. And when people come down to the brewery, they expect a certain level, like we were talking about. But it's really cool to be able to go somewhere where someone's just pushing a shopping cart down an aisle and they're like, hey, would you like to try a beer? And then you're like, oh yeah, there's this and this, without getting too complex, just being like, what we talked about with Midwest IPA, it's hop forward, it's easy drinking. To be able to apply that knowledge in that kind of context is pretty cool. So,
a last question for you. When someone asks you what does craft beer mean to you?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you as?
Yeah, craft beer. What craft beer is for me, it's like, it's one of the just great joys of life. It's a gift that we have. It's obviously an honor to work in the craft beer industry because I get to see the joy that craft beer brings so many people, so myself included. I've enjoyed craft beer for 15 plus years and certainly enjoy what I do within craft beer, but I love it for itself. It's delicious. It brings people joy. We're able to have a 90-minute conversation about craft beer. So that's what craft beer means to me. It's about human happiness, and obviously enjoyed in moderation and enjoyed properly and all that stuff. That's exactly what a good pint of well-brewed craft beer will do, is bring people joy. So where can people find you? Where on the internet or address when they come up to Cleveland? Totally. So GreatLakesBrewing.com is the website. We have a Facebook page, of course. Instagram is GLBC. Let me double check. It should be GLBC_Cleveland. Yes. GLBC_Cleveland is the Instagram account for the brew pub. It's GLBC Brewpub, no underscore. But if you just type in Great Lakes Brewing on the Instagram search, I'm sure both will come up. And we're very active on socials, so check us out there, post away. We'll probably comment back at you and stuff like that if you do. Well, I appreciate all the 90 minutes you gave me with the tour. My pleasure. Just the beers and the talk. The first time I talked to you, I automatically knew I wanted to come up here and talk with you in person, and it has been everything I've wanted and more. So I appreciate you. Sure thing, Blake. Yep. Cheers. Cheers, man.